back, relax, and maybe get yourself a snack. Me and you gonna have a little chat about books. Hi guys, I am here to review a book I loved. Let's get started. It's Grace of Kings by Ken Liu. This book is one I should have picked up ages ago, and I don't know why I didn't because I flipping loved it. It was so incredibly good. This is what I would describe as an Eastern setting of Game of Thrones, but very different and very, very Eastern. When I say Eastern, I mean it is inspired by lots of the Chinese dynasties and Chinese family structures. There are things like silk kites used for battling one another, big silk airships, bamboo, silk trade, and just so many things that we don't really have in Western society are integral, vital points in this story. It would definitely fit the term of an Eastern Game of Thrones because it has so many characters who all feature in the plot. Two of the main characters are called Cooney and Mata, and they are probably the main characters of the story, though we do get other viewpoint characters coming in later on as well. And these two characters are brought up in a world that is pretty harsh. They have entered the world quite young when an emperor decides he is going to unite various different parts of this world by force. He is taking over various states and he is beheading and killing many of the kings who he meets in order to dominate their lands, and this is a time of strife and tumult for the entire land. These two young boys, Mata and Cooney, grow up in different parts, different states of this land. They do not know each other when they're young, and they come from very different lifestyles because Cooney is a young man who everyone believed was destined for great things. He was quite intelligent, he showed promise, and he went for very extravagant lessons paid by his family in order to try and train him up to become something. But he is a bit more of a troublemaker than everyone banked on. He likes making trouble, he likes having jokes and drinking and being a bit of a fool, and he just enjoys having fun and living his life like it's an adventure every day. So he doesn't really amount to much. We also follow Mata, who is a character who comes from a very troubled past. His father and his family were actually one of the kings of the states who were taken over and occupied by the new emperor, and so he is the last remaining heir of this line. Him and his uncle, who is only about 9 at the time, takes care of him, shields him from all of the horrors of this world, and brings him up with a vengeance to try and take down the emperor and take down the empire and rule it for himself. So he has a strong, strong desire to win back the throne and the various different places that his family ruled over. Mata is a very, very strong, very skilled fighter. He is trained all of his life by his uncle to become the one who can free the empire. So this story spans many, many years and many different parts of this land. Cooney, on the other hand, is kind of a disappointment, like I say, but he has ambition in other ways. He meets a young woman called Gia who starts to transform his life in various different ways, and he really starts to blossom under her calming hand, and she helps him to figure out what he wants to do with his life and get there. Although in a time where the emperor is ruling, it is quite hard to make anything of yourself because the emperor is very, very harsh and very strict and very evil to a lot of people. The land is definitely not benefiting from the empire, and although there are some things that are good, a lot of it is bad. And we actually open the book with an assassination attempt on the emperor's life. What I most enjoyed about this story is not just the characters and the world building, but the magical kind of melding of Eastern culture into something that is so predominantly Western. I love seeing big fantasy stories, but I was getting kind of tired of the Western trope. I think I see it a lot. So it's really refreshing to have something that is very, very different, very based in Chinese culture, very based in Chinese references to gods who actually play a large part in the story, to different trades that we don't really have in the Western world as much. And I really enjoyed the refreshing moments of this book. Speaking of the magic in this story, there are lots of different elements to it. We have things such as the gods having conversations which we get to witness. There are multiple gods and each of them has their own agenda, I suppose you could say. They are out for themselves and they do what they like, and they basically try and influence the mortals in this world towards their way of thinking. However, they are not allowed to directly interfere, so they have to do things in a roundabout way. I very much enjoyed seeing their conversations and their points of view, and how sometimes their ideas worked and sometimes they did not. It was very much on the whims of the humans they were trying to influence. A couple of other magical things we have going on include smoke, which is able to be manipulated, and this is able to clear and cloud people's minds. So there are various different people in this world who are affected by this, and we have people who can manipulate these smokes to give them a clouded or clear mind depending on what they are aiming for. I thought that was a really cool concept because I know the idea of focusing your mind and being calm and being in the present and living in the present and being very aware of your surroundings is certainly in the Eastern tradition. So I thought that was a really cool concept for the magic. And again, one of the other magical things that we have in this is an ancient book which allows you to see your thoughts more clearly. It does not give you information that you don't already know. All it does is order what you do know into something that could be something very revealing, could help you to find something else out, discover something, think about something in a new way, but it never tells you anything new, it just rearranges things for you and helps them to be put into perspective. So I really love that concept as well. Ken Liu himself actually described this book and this series as a silk punk series, which I guess is inspired by the silk trade in China. And I would definitely agree with that. The fact that we have airships and we have mechanics that are used much more in Eastern culture coming into play in the story was a really, really great thing for me to see. I also just really enjoyed the metaphors that we used. As you can see on the front cover, there's a dandelion coming out of a helmet, and this is very significant to the story. The dandelion and the chrysanthemum are very, very key parts of who the characters identify with. Each of the main characters identifies as being one of these flowers, and these flowers, I'm going to be honest, I didn't like dandelions before I read this book, and now I think they're awesome because of how they're described in this story. Dandelions are just something I always thought of as a weed, but I honestly have been transformed in my thinking about dandelions, so I guess that's something. But the way that this story is written, there are so many passages that are just beautiful, not only in tone but also in the emotions that they evoke and the way that they make you think about things. For example, the dandelion. So that was great and I really, really enjoyed that. I don't want to go into too much about it because I don't want to spoil it, but yeah, I loved it, and if you've read it I'm sure you know what I mean. We also have some really great ladies in this. Initially I was going to give this just 4 stars because although I was really, really enjoying it, I didn't think it was quite strong enough with the ladies in the first half. However, when the second half came around, I was hooked, and each of these ladies became so good, so strong, so powerful, so independent, so enabled that I was so happy. We are still set in a kind of time period where women are seen as second-class citizens, even in the Eastern world. But in this book, the characters that Ken Liu has created are able to be open-minded characters who are not necessarily against women. One of them is, but the other one isn't. Who are not necessarily against women, allowing them to be people, be able to do things on their own, be able to show that they have talents of their own. And later on, some of the women in this are just as epic as the men, if not more so, because they are able to think about things in very different ways and do things in very different ways that enable them to achieve more in some areas and the men achieve more in some areas. It's a very equal playing field. I love the equality. I love the fact that we see moments of sexism being rebutted against. Sometimes there are men making jeers and jibes and other men in the book are criticising them for it. That's not something I've ever seen in any other fantasy written by a man, and I loved it. It was great. It's small things like that. I wouldn't say this is necessarily a feminist book, but I would say it has some themes that I was so happy to see and I have not seen in other epic fantasies at all, or very little. So yeah, it was excellent to see that, and I hope to see even more of it in the second book, because now that these characters who are female have been established as major players and major influencers, I think they're going to have a big role in book 2 as well. So hopefully that is the case. Really loved it. Genuinely think it is a series that you would all enjoy if you like epic fantasy, so give it a try. I would not recommend listening to this on audio. I didn't listen to it myself, but I know some other people who have and they didn't enjoy it. I think that is because a lot of the names are quite similar, so unless you can see them written down on the page, you might get confused on audio. But if you have the physical edition or the Kindle edition, highly recommend it. It's so good and I loved it. So I gave this a 4.5 in the end, only because I think book 2 could be stronger and I want to see more and more from this world. I'm so excited to dive into book 2. I have the paperback on pre-order. I think it comes out in June. So I'm going to read it then. But yeah, the hardback is quite expensive, so I'm waiting for the paperback so that it matches this one. But I'm very excited for it and I cannot wait. So let me know if you're planning on reading this. I genuinely loved it and I'm so glad I finally read it. Thank you all so much for watching and I will see you very soon in my next video. Bye!
Thank you for watching my video today. Go pick up a book, then come back and chat with me again.